The invitation arrived on pale silver parchment, sealed with the crescent moon crest of the Crescent Valley Pack. The writing shimmered faintly when it caught the light, as though even the ink had been designed to remind her of everything she was not: elegant, flawless, and full of expectation. Leora sat with the envelope in her lap, her thumb brushing the edge again and again. She didn't need her eyes to know what it said. She'd heard the words enough times in her life. All unmated wolves of age are required to attend the annual mating ceremony. Required. Not requested. Not invited with kindness. She sighed and let the parchment crumple in her hand. They might as well have written, "Come stand on display and prove your uselessness one more time." From across the table her sister Talia clicked her tongue. "Don't be so dramatic. It's not useless. You'll meet people, hear some music, drink some wine. And then you'll go home." "Blind wolves don't get chosen," Leora said flatly. "You know that." Talia didn't argue. She never did when Leora spoke the hard truth. Instead her voice softened. "Then come for the experience. Come because staying home alone again won't change anything." Leora fingered the pendant around her neck. A smooth crescent moon of old silver. It had belonged to her grandmother, the only person who had ever told her she wasn't broken. She could almost hear her grandmother's voice now, stern and loving all at once. "Trust what you sense beyond sight, child. The world is more than eyes can show you." But her grandmother was gone, and what remained was this cold invitation and a hall full of strangers who would see her as little more than a mistake. "Fine," Leora muttered. "I'll go. But don't expect me to enjoy it." The night of the ceremony arrived sooner than she would have liked. Talia fussed with her hair, pinning curls into place. "Hold still. If you'd just let me braid." "No braids." Leora tilted her head away stubbornly. "I want to feel the air move through it." Her sister sighed but obeyed. The scent of pine resin and lavender oil clung to Talia's fingers as she smoothed down stray strands. Finally she stepped back. "There. You look lovely." Leora reached for the pale blue dress they had laid out earlier. It felt soft under her fingers, with a subtle pattern of embroidered vines running across the skirt. A dress made for someone who wanted to be seen. Ironic, she thought. When they arrived at the Great Hall, the first thing that struck her was the sound. 100 conversations layered together like waves crashing. Laughter, clinking glasses, the rustle of silks and velvets. Beneath it all thrummed the low hum of excitement, like the air itself was holding its breath. "The tables are in a horseshoe," Talia whispered in her ear, guiding her carefully past a cluster of strangers. "You're at number 10 near the back. Just keep walking straight." "And you?" Talia hesitated. Further up. Don't worry. You'll be fine." Translation. She had her own chances to chase, and shepherding her blind sister all night wasn't part of the plan. Leora forced a smile she didn't feel. "Go. I'll manage." Talia gave her elbow one last squeeze before slipping away into the crowd, leaving Leora alone in the storm of sound and scent. Her cane tapped rhythmically against the polished floor as she counted her steps. 1, 2, 3, 27 should bring her to the tables. But bodies shifted unpredictably, brushing against her, muttering apologies or falling into startled silence as she passed. Waves of curiosity, pity, and discomfort pressed against her empathic senses until she wanted to curl into herself. She whispered, "Excuse me," again and again, edging forward, searching for the anchor of her assigned seat. Her hip struck something solid. A chair. Relief loosened her chest. She reached out, found the cool wood of the backrest, and lowered herself gratefully into the seat. Finally. She could disappear into the crowd now, let the night wash over her. But then silence. It began beside her and rippled outward. Conversations faltered mid-sentence. Music dimmed. Even the air seemed to thicken. Leora's skin prickled. Something was wrong. A low voice spoke at her side, deep and controlled, carrying the weight of power behind every syllable. "You seem lost." The scent hit her first. Pine needles crushed underfoot, winter air sharp in the lungs, and something darker beneath it, something that made her wolf instinct urge both retreat and surrender. She swallowed hard. "I was looking for table 10. If I've taken someone's seat, I apologize." A sound escaped him, not quite a laugh, not quite a growl. "You're at the high table." "My table." Ice water rushed through her veins. Of all the places in the hall, she had stumbled into the most forbidden seat. beside the most dangerous wolf of them all, the Alpha King. Her breath caught. She pushed against the table trying to rise. I'm so sorry. I'll leave. Stay. One word. Quiet but carrying absolute authority. It wasn't a request. She froze halfway between sitting and standing, as the weight of hundreds of stares pressed into her back. What's your name? The king asked as if they were alone instead of the focus of every watching eye. Leora, she whispered. Leora Dane. Sit down, Leora Dane. And she obeyed. Her heart thudded painfully as she sank back into her chair. Fingers trembling, she reached for her grandmother's pendant, rubbing the familiar crescent shape until warmth spread across her palm. The Alpha King's presence filled the air beside her, sharp and magnetic. You're blind, he said. Not a question, just an observation. Yes. Her voice came out smaller than she intended. And an omega. She nodded. Yes. He leaned back slightly, his scent shifting with faint amusement. An interesting combination. Whispers had resumed around them, soft but relentless. Leora felt them like pricks against her skin. Shock, disapproval, fascination. Her pack leaders would be horrified. This mistake would stain their reputation for years. Your Majesty, came a voice strained with tension. Alpha Rowan, her pack's leader. Please forgive this disruption. Leora meant no disrespect. She's joining me for dinner, the king interrupted smoothly. As my guest. The hall gasped as one. Leora's cheeks burned. She ducked her head, wishing she could vanish. You don't have to. I want to. His voice softened, almost kind. The ceremony was boring me. You are the first genuine thing to happen all evening. She blinked, uncertain if she'd heard correctly. Genuine? That wasn't a word people used about her. Not here. Tell me, he continued, do you know who I am beyond my title? You're the Alpha King. Ruler of 3 packs, a dozen smaller territories. Powerful. Ruthless when necessary. His chuckle rumbled low. Facts about my position, not about me. What do you sense about me, Leora? Her breath caught. Few acknowledged her gift. Fewer still invited her to use it. Tentatively, she reached out with her empathic senses. Alpha emotions were notoriously difficult to read. Hot, layered, overwhelming. But beneath the controlled power that radiated from him, she found something unexpected. Loneliness. Not the absence of people, but a vast hollow emptiness. The ache of someone surrounded yet unseen. You're sad, she whispered before she could stop herself. Lonely. Frustrated. Silence stretched. She braced for anger. Instead he murmured, remarkable. Most people see only what they expect to see. Perhaps you see more clearly than all of them. The sound of servers approaching cut through the tension. Dishes clinked, glasses settled, rich scents of roasted meat and herbs filling the air. Hey he asked. Before she could answer, his hand closed gently over hers, guiding it across the table. Wine glass at 2:00. Water at 12. Salad fork outermost left. Knife to your right. The touch of his warm fingers, so unexpectedly careful, sent a jolt racing up her arm. You've done this before, she breathed. Pause. Then quieter, my mother lost her sight in her final years. The admission startled her. Alpha Kings didn't reveal weaknesses. I'm sorry, she murmured. It was long ago. He released her hand, but the ghost of his touch lingered. All around them, whispers continued like restless birds. What game was he playing, paying attention to a blind omega? What did he want with her? But from him she felt no mockery, no cruelty. Only curiosity and something warmer beneath it. You're trembling, he observed. She forced a shaky laugh. The room is warm. A sound like amusement rumbled in his chest. He didn't believe her. And still, when he leaned closer, his breath stirring the hair near her temple, she didn't pull away. The air in the great hall still felt heavy, as though everyone present held a single breath in unison. Leora could sense the eyes on her, hundreds of them, sharp and unrelenting, like claws pressing against her skin. She tried to shrink into her chair, her hand tightening around her cane, but the Alpha King's voice anchored her. Deep, unyielding. You've disturbed the ceremony, little Omega, he said softly enough that only she could hear. Do you regret it? Her throat tightened. He swallowed. I didn't mean to. I only wanted to find my seat. Instead, he said, and she could hear the faint curl of a smile in his tone. You found mine. The sound of whispers grew, little ripples bouncing through the hall. She could feel the emotions pushing against her: curiosity, disgust, jealousy, awe. She wanted to bolt. But his presence kept her pinned like a deer in a hunter's sights. Your Majesty, she tried again, her voice barely steady, if you'll allow it, I'll leave. No one will notice once I'm gone. He turned his head slightly toward her. She couldn't see it, but she felt it, like the weight of his attention had shifted to her alone. They will notice. Every single one of them. Her fingers twitched against the cool wood of her chair. Then at least they'll forget quickly. No, he said, firmer now, the command rolling through his words like thunder. They won't forget. And neither will I. The words landed heavy in her chest. Why would he say such a thing to her? She was no one. Just a blind Omega forced into a dress and pushed into a hall where she didn't belong. But before she could ask, a new voice interrupted. Your Majesty, Alpha Rowan's voice again, tight and sharp. If I may. You may not. The king didn't raise his voice, but the command in it silenced the entire table. Leora Dane is here because I will it. That is all anyone needs to know. A tremor went through the room. Leora lowered her head, wishing she could sink through the floor. Her pulse hammered in her ears. She whispered, so softly she hoped no one but him would hear, Why are you doing this? He leaned closer, his breath brushing her ear. Because you don't pretend. Everyone else here is performing. You walked in and ruined the script. I find that refreshing. Her chest squeezed. I didn't mean to. And yet you did, he said. Tao, you'll stay. It wasn't a request. The servers moved around them again, placing dishes with quiet efficiency. The clink of porcelain and silverware rang strangely loud against the tense silence. Leora tried to focus on her food, on her breath, on anything but the powerful man seated beside her. But he didn't let her. What do you taste? He asked suddenly as she took a careful bite. She blinked, caught off guard. Venison. Roasted, I think. And thyme. Sharp ears, he said approvingly. You notice what most overlook. She shifted uncomfortably. It's all I have. Not all. His tone dropped low. Tell me what else you sense in this hall. She hesitated. Too many things. Pick one. Her fingers tightened around her fork. She reached with her empathic gift, brushing through the waves of emotions that swirled around her. Some were sharp with envy, others dull with boredom. But one stood out, a hot, piercing beam. Malice, she whispered. From someone nearby. Focused on you. Or, maybe me. The king went still beside her. So still she could almost hear the shift of his heartbeat. Where? Her temples throbbed as she pressed harder, trying to isolate the sensation. 3 tables left. Male. Cold, calculating. His jaw flexed. She could hear it in the scrape of his teeth. Counselor Arden, he said, his voice iron. An old enemy. Leora swallowed. He hates me sitting here. No, the king said softly with a dangerous calm. He hates me for letting you. The hall buzzed with whispers again, but Leora's world narrowed to the Alpha King's steady presence beside her. She had made a mistake sitting here. A terrible mistake. Yet some part of her knew, leaving wasn't an option anymore. Eat, he commanded quietly. And breathe. I'll handle the rest. So she did. Though her hands trembled as she lifted her fork, she obeyed. And for the first time in years, someone else carried the weight of the room for her. The music swelled again, soft strings and drums filling the heavy silence that had lingered around the high table. Conversations resumed in stilted bursts, though the current of curiosity and judgment still throbbed all around. Leora forced another bite of food past her lips, but her mind was elsewhere. On the king's words, on the dangerous attention, on the storm of emotions pressing against her skin. He turned to her suddenly. Tell me about yourself. She nearly choked. Me? Yes. Not your pack. Not your status. You. Her cheeks warmed. There's nothing to tell. I live at the edge of the valley. I tend herbs. I try to stay out of trouble. You're in trouble now, he said, amusement curling in his voice. She let out a shaky laugh. That wasn't my plan. Good. His chair shifted closer. Plans are overrated. His nearness made her breath hitch. She twisted her pendant between her fingers, grounding herself in its familiar shape. My grandmother used to say sight isn't the most important sense, she said quietly. She taught me to listen, to feel, to trust what I sense in people. He tilted his head. That's your gift, isn't it? Reading what others hide. He stiffened. Most people whispered about it but never spoke to her of it directly. It's not always clear. Sometimes it's too much. Sometimes it hurts. And yet you read me, he said softly. Leora swallowed. I didn't mean to. You did, he said, his voice a deep rumble. And you were right. Her heart tripped over itself. She wanted to ask why a king would feel lonely, but the words stuck in her throat. Instead she whispered, It isn't fair. I shouldn't know things I can't unknow. It's a gift, he corrected firmly. One that makes you dangerous. Dangerous? Her. The thought seemed absurd. She was the blind Omega everyone pitied. But his voice held no doubt. Across the hall voices rose as another announcement echoed. A late arrival. The doors opened with a heavy groan. A new scent swept through the hall, sharp and familiar yet edged with aggression. Leora stiffened instinctively. The king's hand brushed hers under the table, steadying her. My brother, he said flatly. Prince Kale. The air shifted. Conversation dimmed. Footsteps approached, slow and deliberate, dripping with confidence. Well, came the newcomer's voice, smooth but laced with mockery. And here I thought I'd missed the excitement. But it seems my brother found himself some entertainment. His gaze, hot and assessing, swept over Leora like claws. She clenched her pendant tighter. Prince Kale, the king said coolly, his tone carrying steel. This is Leora Dane. She is my guest. A blind Omega? Kale's laugh cut through the hall. Truly, brother, your tastes grow stranger each year. The insult stung sharp as a blade. Leora's chest burned, but before she could shrink back, the king rose to his feet. The weight of his power rolled across the room like a storm breaking, pressing down on every wolf present until silence reigned. His voice came deadly quiet. Apologize. Kale faltered just for a second. Then he masked it with a grin. Surely you don't mean. Apologize. To her. The command carried alpha force that made Leora's wolf shiver inside her skin. Even she had to fight not to bow her head. The prince's teeth ground audibly. Finally, he inclined his head stiffly toward her. My apologies, Lady Dane. The honorific rang strange in her ears. Lady. No one had ever called her that before. She whispered back, No harm done, your highness. But harm had been done. Everyone knew it. The king lowered himself back into his chair, but the tension radiating from him burned like fire. His hand brushed hers once more beneath the table, a subtle reassurance. You see? He murmured so only she could hear. Your presence makes liars reveal themselves. Her pulse thundered. She didn't know what terrified her more. His enemy's hatred or the Alpha King's unwavering attention. The clatter of cutlery and the hum of conversation returned gradually, like a tide creeping back after being forced away. But for Leora the hall was anything but calm. Her pulse hammered in her ears. She tried to keep her breathing steady, but her gift was already reaching outward, unbidden, sifting through the storm of emotions crashing against her skin. Envy. Disgust. Curiosity. And then, something darker. That same thread she had felt earlier. A sharp, poisonous hatred laced with intent. She froze, her fork halfway to her mouth. The sensation wasn't just dislike. It wasn't jealousy or judgment. It was the taste of sharpened steel, the weight of danger pressing from across the hall. The king noticed. His voice dipped low, so quiet only she could hear. You've gone still. She swallowed hard. Someone wants harm. To you. To me. Both. His chair creaked as he shifted slightly closer. Where? Her temples throbbed as she focused, weaving through the chaotic blend of scents and feelings. It was like trying to find a single drop of poison in a river of wine. But there, sharp and cold, thrumming like a drumbeat. Third table on the left, she whispered. Male. Feels like stone. Still water. Old anger. The king's scent changed, sharper, edged like the cut of a blade. His voice carried the calm of a predator before it struck. Counselor Arden, he said. She could feel the name in his chest, the way his heart tightened around it. Enemy. Not just rival. Not just politician. Enemy. Why does he hate you? She dared to ask. The king leaned close, his breath brushing against the sensitive skin near her temple. Because I stand in the way of what he wants. And tonight you've given him a reason to hate you too. Her stomach dropped. Me. You are at my side, he said simply. That makes you dangerous in his eyes. Dangerous. The word again. Leora's fingers twisted around her pendant, the smooth crescent warm from her touch. She wanted to argue to deny it, but in this moment with the weight of the king's gaze on her, she wasn't sure she could. The meal continued, but Leora's attention stayed on that thread of hatred across the room. Every time she brushed against it with her senses, it pulsed sharper, a blade waiting for its moment. You're trembling again, the king observed as the servers cleared away plates. She forced a smile, though her hands shook as she folded her napkin. Maybe I shouldn't be here. You're exactly where I want you, he replied. Her breath caught. But the others. Let them look, he interrupted. Let them whisper. Their opinions do not matter. The words landed like heavy stones in her chest. No one had ever dismissed the judgment of others for her before. No one had ever said she belonged anywhere, let alone beside a king. She bit her lip, whispering, I don't understand you. Good, he said, and she could hear the smirk in his voice. If you understood me so easily, I would not be worth your time. Despite herself, a quiet laugh slipped from her lips. It startled her, fragile but real. He chuckled in response, low and warm. The sound vibrated through her, making her cheeks heat. For a moment the hall fell away. There was only him, his presence burning steady beside her, and the strange realization that he was not mocking her, not pitying her. He was intrigued. And Leora, against all reason, found herself intrigued too. The doors burst open again, this time with unnecessary force. A gust of colder air swept through, carrying a scent that was familiar yet sharper than the king's, like pine needles crushed too fine, releasing bitterness instead of freshness. Leora stiffened. Her senses prickled with recognition. The king went rigid beside her. His voice dropped, flat and controlled. My brother. Prince Kale's footsteps echoed as he strode into the hall, his energy arrogant and commanding. Conversation dimmed, every head turning toward him. Forgive my delay, Kale announced loudly, his voice dripping with false warmth. The hunt kept me longer than expected. Leora shrank in her chair, fingers gripping her cane. She could feel his gaze before he even reached the table. Hot, sharp, searching. Brother, Kale said as he neared, the smile in his tone edged with mockery. And who is this unexpected guest? Leora's chest tightened. The king answered calmly. This is Leora Dane. She is my guest tonight. Kale's laugh was sharp, cutting through the hall. A blind Omega? Truly, Dominic, you do love your surprises. The words sliced into her. Heat burned behind her eyes, but she refused to bow her head. Not here. Not in front of him. But before she could speak, the king rose from his seat in one smooth, commanding motion. The atmosphere shifted instantly. Power unfurled from him like a storm breaking, pressing down on the hall until even Leora's wolf whimpered inside her. His voice was quiet, deadly. Apologize. Kale's false amusement faltered for a heartbeat. Then he chuckled again, though thinner now. Surely you don't mean. Apologize. To her. The words carried alpha command so strong Leora nearly gasped. Even seated, she felt her spine straighten, her wolf wanting to obey despite the command not being directed at her. For a moment, silence. The entire hall waited, breathless. Then Kale's voice, forced and clipped, My apologies, Lady Dane. The title stunned her. No one had ever called her lady. She fumbled for words. No harm done, Your Highness. But harm had been done. Everyone in the hall knew it. The king remained standing until Kale moved further down the table, sliding into a seat with a simmering scent of irritation. Only then did he sit back beside her, his movements smooth but edged with tension. Leora turned her head slightly toward him, whispering, He doesn't approve of me. Her king's voice was cool, iron wrapped in velvet. My brother approves of nothing that isn't his idea. Pay him no mind. But Leora sensed there was more. Beneath Dominic's calm, layers of old frustration and rivalry smoldered, deep and dangerous. Kale's presence changed the air of the hall, filling it with sharp unease. Whispers returned, speculation spreading like fire. And through it all, the Alpha King's attention remained fixed on Leora. You see? He murmured again, low enough only she could hear. Already you forced truths into the open. My brother has revealed more of himself in 2 minutes with you than he has in years. Her heart pounded. I didn't mean to. He leaned closer, his scent wrapping around her like winter air. That's why it matters. Leora clutched her pendant, her grandmother's words echoing in her mind. Trust what you sense beyond sight. And what she sensed now, sitting between two powerful brothers whose rivalry threatened to split the hall in half, was that her life had just been pulled into a storm she could never have imagined. The great hall simmered with noise again, though it wasn't the same as before. The air had shifted since Prince Kale's entrance and the Alpha King's command for his brother to apologize. The conversations around Leora weren't the idle chatter of earlier. They were sharpened, purposeful, calculating. He could feel them. Tiny jabs of envy. The acidic sting of resentment. The sticky sweetness of feigned curiosity. They were all about her. Her skin prickled and she smoothed her hands down the silk of her pale blue dress. She had wanted to blend into the shadows, invisible at table 10. Now she sat at the center of everything, drowning in eyes and whispers. A woman's voice, sharp and mocking, carried from a table behind. Blind or not, she has nerve. Sitting there as if she belongs. Another voice, softer but cruel, answered, she won't last the night. The king will grow tired of his charity soon enough. The words cut like glass. Leora's throat tightened, but she forced her chin high. She would not let them see her flinch. Beside her, the king's scent shifted, his energy pressing harder into the room. He didn't need to raise his voice. His silence alone carried weight, a warning for anyone foolish enough to continue. The whispers faltered, falling into uneasy quiet. You hear them, he said softly. Yes, she whispered back. And? Her fingers found her pendant, twisting it anxiously. I'm used to it. Used to cruelty doesn't mean you deserve it. She turned her head toward him, startled by the steel in his voice. Why do you care? Because they would never dare say such things if it were anyone else at my table. His voice dipped low, heavy with authority. They forget themselves. They forget what it means to insult someone under my protection. Her lips parted, but no words came. Protection. No one had ever spoken of her that way before. The servers arrived with the next course, setting down steaming bowls of fragrant broth and delicate rolls of bread brushed with honeyed butter. The smells made her stomach twist with both hunger and nerves. The king's hand brushed hers again, steady and deliberate. Pay I? Yes, she whispered. He guided her spoon to the bowl, explaining softly. Soup. Rich with herbs and venison. Bread at 2 o'clock. Butter beside it. The warmth of his fingers lingered long after he withdrew. She ate carefully, savoring the flavors. Around them, the women positioned at the high table radiated resentment, their emotions sharp as thorns. Leora could feel their glares like daggers. One in particular burned with hostility so strong it made Leora's temples ache. Someone doesn't like me being here, she murmured, her voice low. The king's tone held a hint of amusement. Someone. She frowned. Many then. They were chosen, groomed, paraded in front of me as potential mates, he explained quietly. And yet you, who were never meant to sit here, hold my attention instead. Her cheeks heated. That wasn't my intention. Intention is irrelevant, he said. Reality is what matters. The weight of his words left her breathless. She lowered her spoon, suddenly too aware of every shift in the room, every eye on her, every beat of her own heart. Prince Kale's laughter cut through the air again, sharp as broken glass. Dominic, you always did enjoy disrupting tradition. But this. His tone dripped with scorn. This is beyond even your taste for rebellion. Dominic. Leora flinched at the name, hearing it for the first time spoken so openly. The king's reply was smooth but edged. Careful, brother. Mockery is a blade that cuts the hand that wields it. The tension between them hummed like a live wire. Leora pressed her hands against her lap, fighting the urge to shrink away. Kale leaned back in his chair, the scrape of it deliberate, smug. We'll see how long this little experiment lasts. His emotions carried easily to Leora, mocking on the surface, but beneath them she sensed something darker. Fear. A twisting unease that he masked with arrogance. Why would he fear her? The thought unsettled her even more than his cruelty. The third course arrived, heavier now, roasted lamb with rosemary and garlic, accompanied by sweet carrots glazed in wine. The aromas filled the air, but Leora hardly noticed. Her thoughts tangled like roots, her gift prickling with warning and questions. She could feel the king watching her. His presence was steady, grounding, but also overwhelming. "You've gone quiet," he said. She forced a small smile. "Maybe I've run out of clever things to say. Cleverness is overrated. I'd rather have truth." Her fingers traced the curve of her pendant. "Truth isn't always welcome. Then it's even more valuable." She hesitated, then whispered, "Would you really want to know the truth about yourself even if it hurt?" "Yes," he said without pause. "Especially then." Her gift stirred, tugging at her. She brushed against his emotions again. Power, loneliness, curiosity. And something else she couldn't name, something deep and raw. "You hide sadness well," she murmured before she could stop herself. Silence followed, stretching taut. She braced for anger. Instead his voice came quiet, low. "You remind me of someone." Her breath caught. "Who?" "My mother." She blinked. That wasn't the answer she expected. He continued, "She saw things others could not. Not like you, not with your gift. But she noticed what others ignored. She called it sight of the soul." The words made her chest ache. She tightened her grip on the pendant. "My grandmother used to say something similar. She said eyes aren't the only way to see." He turned sharply, his attention narrowing. "Your grandmother?" "Yes." Leora's voice softened with memory. "She raised me. She was different. People said she had strange ways, but she taught me to listen, to sense what can't be seen. She gave me this pendant." She lifted the crescent moon charm slightly, letting it dangle from its chain. "She told me it would protect me." The king reached out. His fingers brushed hers as he examined the pendant. The contact sent a shiver through her, but she didn't pull away. "This is old," he said, his voice quieter now, thoughtful. "Older than your pack. These markings." He paused. "What markings?" she asked quickly. "Runes. Ancient ones." His thumb traced the edges. "Do you know what they mean?" She shook her head. "She never told me." "They're wards," he explained. "Against lies. Against deception. Truth will always find you in darkness." Her breath caught. She clutched the pendant back to her chest, her grandmother's words echoing sharper than ever. "Why would she give me that?" Leora whispered. The king's reply came soft, but edged with something she couldn't name. "Because she knew who you were meant to be." The air between them thickened. Leora's thoughts whirled, her chest heavy with questions she didn't dare voice. "Tell me," the king said suddenly, his tone shifting, "what do you sense about the man who just insulted you?" "My brother." She hesitated, uncertain. But he waited, patient and steady. So she reached outward again, brushing her gift against Prince Kale's aura. It was like touching fire under ice. Mockery on the surface, but beneath it coiled bitterness, ambition, and yes, fear. "He's jealous," she whispered. "Of you. And afraid. Of me maybe. Or of what your attention to me means." The king's scent deepened, sharp and satisfied. "Good." Her brow furrowed. "Good. It means you see clearly." Her heart pounded. "But what does it mean for me?" He turned back to her, his voice lowering to a growl only she could hear. "It means, Leora Dane, that you are no longer invisible." Her fingers tightened around her pendant as the weight of his words sank in. No longer invisible. It should have terrified her. And it did. But beneath the fear, a spark of something else flickered. Something she hadn't felt in years. Hope. The hall had just begun to recover from Kale's dramatic arrival when the doors opened once more. This time silence fell instantly. No laughter, no whispers, not even the clink of glasses. The air shifted, heavy with reverence. Leora's heart thudded. She didn't need sight to know someone important had entered. The collective breath of the crowd told her everything. Beside her, Dominic rose smoothly to his feet. "Mother," he said, his tone edged with formal respect. "The Queen Mother." Her footsteps moved with measured grace, each one deliberate. Leora caught the faint chime of jewelry, the rustle of expensive silks. Power rolled ahead of her, not wild like Dominic's but cold, precise and commanding. "My son," the Queen Mother greeted, her voice cultured and controlled. I apologize for my late arrival. The journey from the northern palace was delayed by storms. Her words washed over the crowd like cool water, restoring calm. Then her attention shifted, sharp as a blade. Leora felt it land on her like a touch. And this, the Queen Mother said, her tone unreadable, must be the Omega who has caused such a stir. Leora stiffened, her hands clutching her pendant. She lowered her head. Your Majesty. The Queen Mother's steps drew closer. Look at me, child. Leora's chest squeezed. She turned her face toward the voice, her blank eyes lifting obediently. I'm afraid I cannot see you, Your Majesty. I have been blind since childhood. Pause. Then unexpectedly the Queen Mother said, I am aware. Warm hands, cool with rings, suddenly cupped Leora's face. The touch was delicate but deliberate, tracing the lines of her features, lingering near her temples. It wasn't invasive but ceremonial, like something ancient and practiced. Leora froze, her breath shallow. Interesting, the Queen Mother murmured almost to herself. You have your grandmother's features, especially around the eyes. The words hit Leora like a blow. Her grandmother? You knew her. Leora whispered, unable to contain herself. The Queen Mother did not answer directly. Instead she turned her head slightly. Dominic, a word. Now. The command wasn't loud, but it carried the weight of inevitability. Yes, Mother. Dominic's voice was calm, but Leora sensed the tension beneath it. His hand brushed Leora's shoulder gently. Excuse me for a moment. Then he followed the Queen Mother, their footsteps fading toward a side chamber. Leora remained standing awkwardly beside the high table. Around her, conversation resumed in a low, buzzing wave, speculation pouring like water through cracks. She sank back into her seat, her pulse racing. Her grandmother. The Queen Mother had known her grandmother. But how? And why would she mention it now? Her thoughts tangled, a storm of questions with no answers. And then, as if fate wished to test her further, Cale slid into the empty seat Dominic had left behind. Well, he murmured, his voice smooth and mocking. Left alone already? That didn't take long. Leora's grip on her cane tightened. She turned her head toward him. Prince Cale. How formal. His chuckle was low. Tell me, little Omega, how does it feel? Sitting here, drowning in stares, knowing every wolf in this hall wonders why you of all people are beside my brother. Her lips pressed together. I didn't ask for this. No, Cale agreed, leaning closer, his breath warm against her ear. But you will pay for it all the same. Her stomach twisted. Are you threatening me? I don't need to threaten. His tone sharpened, though his smile never wavered. My brother destroys everything he touches. Do you think you will be different? Her pendant burned in her palm. She reached for her gift, brushing against Cale's emotions. Beneath his mockery and arrogance she felt it again, fear. Deep gnawing fear. You're lying, she whispered. He stilled. What? You're afraid. Her voice steadied with certainty. Not of me. Of what my presence means. For a heartbeat, silence. Then Cale laughed, genuine this time though bitter. Well played, little Omega. Perhaps my brother sees something in you after all. He rose, his chair scraping back. But tread carefully. Curiosity is a dangerous game. His footsteps retreated, leaving Leora trembling but strangely resolute. Her grandmother's pendant pulsed warm against her skin. Truth will find you in darkness. Dominic returned not long after, his presence steady and grounding as he resumed his seat beside her. She felt the subtle brush of his hand against hers under the table, a reassurance meant for her alone. You spoke with your mother, Leora said quietly. Yes. His tone was clipped. We will discuss it later. Something in his voice told her not to press further. The meal continued, though Leora barely tasted the food. Tension rippled beneath the surface of every conversation, waiting, brewing. And then, like storm clouds breaking, it came. Your Majesty. The voice was sharp, male with the ring of authority. Counselor Arden. Leora's skin prickled instantly at the sound. The same man she had sensed earlier, radiating malice. The council requests an immediate audience regarding the Uy situation. The hall hushed. All eyes turned toward the high table again. Dominic's reply was smooth but unyielding. The ceremony is not yet concluded. The council can wait until morning. With respect, Your Majesty, Another voice interjected, female this time, Lady Corvina, another council member. The political implications of your choices cannot wait. The stability of the realm. Dominic cut her off with a single word, his voice quiet but heavy with alpha command. Enough. The hall stilled. You forget yourselves, Dominic continued, his tone edged with steel. I am Alpha King. My decisions do not require immediate approval. Whispers fluttered like restless birds through the crowd. Leora's chest tightened. The hostility from the counselors beat against her skin, hot and sharp, like knives pressed too close. Her hand trembled beneath the table and instinctively she laid it gently on Dominic's arm. She let her gift flow, a wave of calm and steadiness. Not manipulation, not force, just a reminder of peace. His energy shifted immediately, the anger smoothing into cold control. He glanced at her briefly, surprise flickering through his aura, then approval. Counselors, he said evenly, this matter will be discussed in due time. For now, the ceremony proceeds as tradition demands. If you cannot stomach that, you may leave. Silence. Finally, Counselor Arden inclined his head stiffly. As you wish, Your Majesty. The counselors withdrew, though their resentment lingered like a foul stench. Leora released a shaky breath. They hate me. Dominic's hand covered hers under the table, strong and steady. They fear you. Her throat tightened. Why? His thumb brushed slow circles against her skin, a touch both grounding and intimate. Because they cannot control you. And because you've given me something no counselor ever could. What's that? She whispered. He leaned close, his voice for her alone. Truth. Her chest ached, her heart racing wildly. For years she had been dismissed, pitted, overlooked. Now she sat at the center of storms, envy, fear, hostility, and yet for the first time she felt seen. The hall continued around them, but Leora knew nothing would ever be the same. She was no longer invisible. And the world would not forgive her for it. The hall was still buzzing with the aftermath of the council's public clash with Dominic when Leora felt it again, that gnawing, deliberate weight of someone's gaze fixed on her. It wasn't curiosity. Not pity. Something darker. She didn't need her gift to know who it was. His emotions rolled toward her like smoke, sharp, mocking, but tinged with something heavier, something carefully hidden. When the servers brought the next course, Cale moved again, abandoning his conversation with a noblewoman 2 seats down. He slid into the chair on Leora's other side with the ease of someone who felt entitled to any place he chose. Well, he drawled, swirling the wine in his glass, you've caused quite a storm tonight. Leora kept her hands folded in her lap. I didn't intend to. Intentions don't matter. Results do. He sipped his wine, his voice low enough for only her to hear. And the result, little Omega, is that you've drawn the wrath of half this hall and the suspicion of the rest. Her chest tightened. I never wanted. He cut her off smoothly. That's what makes it so dangerous. The truly dangerous ones are rarely those who chase power. It's the ones who stumble into it without meaning to. They upset the balance. They make others nervous. She turned her head toward him, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. And what about you? Are you nervous? Cale chuckled, but she felt the edge beneath it. Curious. My brother has rejected every suitable match presented to him for 5 years. And now suddenly he declares interest in you. You must wonder why. Her fingers brushed her pendant. Of course I do. Then let me enlighten you. He leaned closer, his breath warm against her ear. You're not the first. Leora stiffened. There have been others, Cale continued, his tone like a blade wrapped in silk. Special little creatures who caught his interest. Blind seers. Wolves with unique gifts. For a time he kept them close. And then when their novelty wore thin, his smile sharpened. He discarded them. Her heart stumbled. You're lying. Am I? His smirk widened. Ask him yourself. See if he gives you the same careful answers he always gives. Her gift stirred, instinctively brushing against him. Beneath his polished cruelty she felt satisfaction, yes, but also something darker. Not truth. Manipulation. Jealousy. Fear. You're afraid, she whispered before she could stop herself. Cale's smirk faltered. What? You fear him, she said, her voice firmer. And you fear me. That's why you're trying to make me doubt him. For a moment, silence. Then Kale laughed, low and sharp. Clever girl. Perhaps too clever for your own good. He rose abruptly, his chair scraping back. But take my advice. Wolves who play with fire rarely survive the burn. He left her trembling, her thoughts a whirlwind of doubt and defiance. She clutched her pendant tightly. Truth will find you in darkness. And her truth was clear. Kale wanted her gone. But why? When Dominic returned to her side after speaking briefly with a cluster of dignitaries, Leora could still feel the sting of Kale's words echoing inside her. You're pale, Dominic observed, lowering his voice for her alone. What did he say? She hesitated, uncertainty coiling tight in her chest. Was it a trap? She told him, would it spark a war between brothers? He said, her throat tightened. He said, I'm not the first. Dominic went very still. The weight of his silence pressed against her like a storm cloud. And did you believe him? His voice was low, edged with something dangerous. Her fingers twisted her pendant. I wanted to. For a moment. But then I felt him. His emotions. He was lying. Or at least twisting the truth. Dominic exhaled slowly, tension easing from his frame. Good. Good. That you trusted yourself. His hand brushed hers beneath the table, his touch grounding. Never trust Kale's words. He poisons truth with every breath. Leora swallowed hard. Then tell me the truth. Why me? Why insist I stay? Why risk angering the council? He didn't answer at once. Instead, he leaned closer, his voice dropping until it was little more than a murmur. Because I've known of you for years. Her heart lurched. What? His gaze burned against her even though she couldn't see it. Your grandmother was more than a healer, Leora. She was one of the last true seers of our kind. A woman who could glimpse truths and possible futures others could not. My mother. He paused, his jaw tightening. My mother was her ally. The hall seemed to tilt around her. She gripped the edge of the table, her voice barely a whisper. My grandmother never told me. She protected you, Dominic said firmly. Your blindness, though cruel, gave you cover. Who would suspect a blind Omega of carrying a gift kings would kill to control? Her breath came fast and shallow. And you knew? All this time. I knew of you, he admitted. My mother told me the granddaughter of the last seer lived in Crescent Valley. I kept watch from a distance. To ensure your safety. Anger flared hot in her chest. So tonight it was planned? Bringing my pack here? Placing me in your path? He didn't flinch. The invitation was deliberate. But what happened after you sat beside me? That was real. Unexpected. True. Her pendant burned in her palm. How can I believe that? His hand came up, cupping her cheek gently, turning her face toward his. His thumb brushed lightly against her skin. Use your gift. You sensed Kale's lies. Now sense my truth. Her breath hitched. Tentatively, she opened herself, brushing against Dominic's emotions. They came in layers. Power and authority, yes, but beneath them, admiration. Fascination. Protectiveness. And something tender, something fragile but growing stronger with each beat of his heart. No calculation. No cold strategy. Her throat ached. Oh. His voice was quiet. Do you believe me now? She nodded, unable to speak. But questions still burned inside her. Why me, Dominic? You could have any mate. Someone with bloodlines, power, alliances. I've been offered those matches, he said bitterly. Endless negotiations dressed as courtship. But none of them gave me what you gave me the moment you sat beside me. Her voice trembled. What's that? His hand remained warm against her cheek. Truth. You looked at me and saw a man, not a crown. Do you have any idea how rare that is? Her heart pounded, her chest tight with emotions she couldn't untangle. Hope, fear, longing. Tonight, Dominic continued softly, fate placed you at my side. And I will not waste what fate gives me. Tears stung her eyes. She clutched her pendant, her grandmother's words echoing louder than ever. Trust what you sense beyond sight. And what she sensed now was undeniable. The Alpha King's truth was hers to claim, or to fear. The hall had grown heavy with silence after Dominic's quiet revelation. Leora sat unmoving, her grandmother's pendant pressed against her palm as though the silver itself could steady her racing heart. Her world had just shifted. She was not invisible, not forgotten, not discarded by fate. She was the granddaughter of a seer, and the Alpha King had known of her long before this night. And now, as the ceremony reached its final act, every eye turned toward Dominic. The herald's voice rang out, "The Alpha King will now address the assembled." Chairs scraped as the entire hall rose. Dominic stood with them, towering in command. His presence rolled outward like a tide, brushing against every wolf in the chamber. The air thrummed with power. "Tonight," Dominic began, his voice carrying across the hall, "we gather for tradition, for alliances, for the future of our packs." Polite applause followed. But Leora felt the undercurrent: anticipation, unease, suspicion. "And yet," Dominic continued, his gaze sweeping the hall, "tradition means nothing if it blinds us to truth. Alliances are worthless if they are built on lies. The future cannot be bought through political bargaining." A ripple of discomfort moved through the crowd. Dominic extended his hand, not to a noblewoman or a counselor's daughter, but to Leora. Her breath caught. "Tonight," Dominic declared, "I choose not from the lists given to me, not from the endless parade of ambition disguised as loyalty. I choose truth. I choose the one who walked into this hall with nothing but honesty and courage." Gasps spread like wildfire. "Leora Dane," he said, his voice ringing with finality. "You are my chosen." The hall erupted. Shouts of disbelief. Whispers of scandal. Outright fury from the council table. Leora's knees weakened. She clutched the edge of the table, her breath shallow. "Chosen." The word reverberated through her chest, heavy and unreal. Dominic's hand waited, steady and unyielding. "Take it," he murmured, low enough only she could hear. Her pulse thundered. Every instinct screamed to run, to hide, to vanish back into the shadows. But another voice, her grandmother's, whispered in her mind, "Trust what you sense beyond sight." She reached out. Her fingers slid into his, warm and strong. The hall roared louder. Chaos followed. Nobles shouted protests. The counselors rose to their feet, their voices sharp with outrage. "This is madness," Counselor Arden thundered. "An Omega? Blind? You would disgrace the crown with such a choice." Dominic's power surged instantly, pressing down on the hall until even the boldest voices faltered. "I am Alpha King," he said coldly. "It is not your place to question whom I choose." But Arden did not bow. "And what of the packs, your majesty? What of stability? What of alliances broken by this reckless decision? Will you cast aside centuries of order for her?" Leora's chest constricted. His hatred burned, hot and unrelenting, crashing against her senses. Dominic stepped forward, pulling her with him so all could see. "Yes," he said without hesitation. "For her." Gasps again, louder this time, mixed with fury and shock. Leora's hand shook in his, but he held firm. And though fear coiled in her chest, another feeling rose stronger. Defiance. For once in her life she wasn't invisible. The ceremony ended in uproar. Nobles dispersed into clusters of whispers, their words sharp and venomous. Counselors huddled together, their eyes dark with plotting. Dominic guided Leora from the high table, his hand steady at her back. "You're trembling," he murmured. "Everyone hates me," she whispered. "They fear you," he corrected. Her breath shuddered. "I don't want this." "You think I do?" His tone was bitter, though not at her. "But what we want is irrelevant now. What's done cannot be undone." He led her toward the side chamber where the Queen Mother had gone earlier. Guards stood at the door, their stances tense. At Dominic's nod, they opened the way. Inside, the Queen Mother awaited, her aura calm but heavy with authority. "So it is true," she said evenly. "You've declared her." "Yes." Dominic's tone brooked no argument. The Queen Mother's gaze, though unseen, pressed against Leora like cold steel. "Child, do you understand what you've stepped into?" Leora swallowed hard. "No. Not fully." "Then hear me now." The Queen Mother's voice was sharp. "The Council will not allow this to stand. They will strike not with open blades but with politics, whispers, assassins in the dark. You are a threat to their power. They will make you bleed for daring to exist where they cannot control you." Leora's fingers twisted her pendant. "Then why not stop this? Why not tell him to choose someone else?" "Because," the Queen Mother said quietly, I see the same thing in you that your grandmother carried. Truth. And my son has been surrounded by liars for too long. Dominic's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. A knock rattled the door. One of the guards entered, bowing low. Your Majesty. The council demands an immediate session in the lower chamber. They refuse to leave until you appear. Dominic's eyes darkened. Of course they do. Leora's pulse quickened. It's because of me. It was always going to be because of you, Dominic said, his voice low but certain. He brushed his thumb against her hand. Stay here. With my mother. I'll handle them. Her heart twisted. You shouldn't go alone. His lips curved in a faint, dangerous smile. I am never alone. Then he was gone, striding into the storm awaiting him below. The Queen Mother moved closer, her presence sharp and assessing. He's right. You've already changed the game. The council will stop at nothing now. Leora clutched her pendant, whispering, Then I must be strong. The Queen Mother's silence stretched. Finally, she said, Perhaps you will survive this after all. Leora lifted her chin, her voice steady despite her shaking hands. I will. But inside, fear and determination warred like twin wolves. The council had declared her enemy. And soon she would see just how far they were willing to go. The palace at night was a different beast than the hall of ceremony. By day it was all gilded pillars and proud banners, full of laughter and pomp. But now, as the moon cast silver shadows across the marble floors, silence held its corridors. Silence and danger. Leora sat in the chamber the Queen Mother had assigned her, her fingers twined so tightly around her pendant that the edges bit into her skin. She couldn't sleep. Every whisper from the hall below, every shuffle of boots from the guards outside the door, made her heart leap. Her grandmother's voice haunted her. Trust what you sense beyond sight. And what she sensed now was wrong. The guards outside the door, at first steady, confident presences, now flickered with unease. Their emotions faltered, thinned, then vanished altogether. Vanished. Leora's chest clenched. Guards didn't simply stop being. Her gift screamed at her in warning. She rose, reaching for her cane when the door handle shifted. Slow. Careful. Deliberate. Her breath froze in her lungs. Then silence again. She clutched her cane like a weapon. I know you're there, she whispered. The door burst inward. A rush of air, heavy boots, and the metallic tang of steel. Since. She stumbled back as one lunged toward her, the heat of his rage flaring like a beacon. She swung her cane blindly, connecting with a sharp crack against his arm. He cursed, the blade in his hand clattering against the floor. Another rushed in. She could feel his intent like fire aimed at her throat. And then, Dominic's scent hit her, sharp as pine and winter. The room filled with a snarl so primal it made her wolf recoil inside her chest. Dominic. He tore through the doorway, a storm of power and fury. She couldn't see him, but she heard the brutal snap of bone, the thud of bodies against walls, the wet crack of a blade finding flesh. The assassins screamed. Dominic did not. Moments later, silence fell again, heavy, broken only by Dominic's ragged breathing. Leora. His voice was urgent, rough with panic. I'm here, she gasped, clutching her pendant. Strong arms wrapped around her, pulling her against his chest. His body trembled, his heart thundered, but his embrace was steady. You're safe, he breathed. I have you. Tears burned her eyes. They were here to kill me. His jaw brushed her temple, tight with rage. No. They came to kill us. You are mine now, and the council knows it. They struck to test me. Her fingers gripped his tunic, anchoring herself. And you answered them. Yes, he growled. And I will answer harder next time. She pressed her face into him, listening to the storm of his heartbeat. Fear, anger, relief, all tangled in her chest. For the first time she realized, she wasn't afraid of him. She was afraid of losing him. They didn't leave the chamber until dawn, when the Queen Mother herself arrived with a small squad of loyal guards. The scent of blood still lingered, metallic and sharp, though the bodies had been cleared. The council grows reckless, the Queen Mother said, her voice a cold blade. Striking within the palace itself, they have declared war. Dominic's arm tightened protectively around Leora. Let them declare it. I'll end it. The Queen Mother's gaze slid to Leora, unreadable. And you, child? Are you ready to carry the weight of what comes? Leora's throat was dry but her voice didn't waver. I will. The Queen Mother studied her for a long moment then nodded. Then the council will fail. She swept from the chamber, leaving them in the hush of morning light. Dominic turned to Leora, his hands cupping her face. His touch was gentle, but beneath it she felt the tremor of rage he fought to contain. You could have died tonight. Her voice broke. So could you. I've faced blades before, he said, his forehead lowering to touch hers. But the thought of you, his breath shuddered. That is different. Unbearably different. Her heart ached, her pendant warm between them. Dominic. He pulled back just enough to look at her, though she could not see him. His voice was low, raw. This is more than politics. More than defiance. When I claimed you I meant it. You're mine, Leora Dane. And he hesitated, the words thick in his throat. I am yours if you'll have me. Her breath caught. No one had ever spoken such words to her. No one had ever chosen her. Not out of pity, not out of obligation, but with truth burning in their chest. She let her gift unfurl, brushing against his emotions. What she found nearly knocked her to her knees. Fury at the council. Fear of losing her. Admiration. Respect. And beneath it all a growing, undeniable bond. One that pulsed like a heartbeat, echoing her own. She whispered, I already do. Dominic's lips claimed hers, fierce and unrestrained, sealing the vow neither of them had spoken aloud. The world outside burned with enemies and politics, but in that moment there was only truth. And the truth was theirs. The council's summons came at midday. Not polite, not respectful. Demanding. Dominic's jaw tightened as he read the sealed parchment, the script bold and sharp with arrogance. The Alpha King will present himself before the council at once to answer for his reckless declaration. He crumpled it in one hand. They dare. Leora stood at his side, her fingers brushing her pendant, her senses stretching outward. The entire palace pulsed with unease. Guards restless, servants whispering, wolves gathering in tight, tense knots. The air reeked of fear and anticipation. They're going to strike again, she whispered. Yes, Dominic said grimly. And this time I'll end it. The Queen Mother entered, her steps swift. They've gathered in the council chamber with armed guards at their back. They mean to corner you. Her gaze flicked to Leora. And her. Leora's stomach twisted, but she lifted her chin. Then we'll face them together. Dominic's hand closed firmly around hers. Exactly so. The council chamber was vast, circular, its walls lined with banners of each allied pack. The air inside crackled with hostility as Dominic and Leora entered. Councillor Arden stood at the center, his presence cold and venomous. At last the Alpha King arrives. We feared your distraction had kept you from duty. His gaze slid to Leora with open disdain. Dominic's voice cut like a blade. Speak plainly, Arden. You've never mastered subtlety. A murmur of uneasy laughter rippled through the chamber, quickly silenced as Arden raised his hand. We, the council, cannot permit this insult to our traditions. To crown a blind Omega as your chosen is to weaken the throne, to fracture alliances, to invite war. You speak of war, Dominic growled, and yet it is you who send assassins into my halls. Gasps erupted. Arden's mask slipped for only a moment, rage flashing before he smoothed it away. Proof, your majesty? Or only baseless accusation? Leora stepped forward, her voice steady. I am proof. Dozens of eyes swung to her. She could feel their judgment, their disbelief, but she pressed on. My gift tells me truth, she said, holding her pendant high. And the truth is that you, Councillor Arden, were the cold hatred I felt the night blades came for me. The chamber erupted in chaos. Shouts, denials, demands. Arden sneered. The word of a blind girl? This is your evidence. Leora's chest burned, but Dominic's voice thundered over the noise. Her word is worth more than all your lies combined. Power surged from him, raw and unrestrained. Wolves across the chamber lowered their heads instinctively, their bodies bowing under his alpha command. But Arden resisted, his teeth bared, his aura flaring with rebellion. Then I challenge you, Dominic. For the throne. The words rang like a death bell. Silence followed, heavy and absolute. Dominic's lips curved in a deadly smile. At last, honesty. Very well. Let the council witness your fall. The duel was called immediately, The chamber cleared, leaving only a circle of stone and shadow. Leora stood at the edge, her heart pounding so hard she thought it might burst. Her gift screamed with danger, with hatred, with the inevitability of blood. Dominic faced Arden in the center. One towered with power earned through strength, loyalty, and truth. The other crackled with ambition and desperation. The clash began with a snarl. They collided, claws and teeth and fists, their wolves flickering at the edges of their forms. Dominic struck hard, each blow precise, but Arden was fueled by hatred, striking wild and relentless. Stone cracked beneath them. Blood spattered the floor. Growls echoed like thunder. Leora's pendant burned in her palm. Her gift surged, unbidden, pressing against the storm of rage in the chamber. And then she saw it, not with eyes, but with the sense her grandmother had taught her to trust. A vision of intent. Arden not just fighting for victory, but reaching for a dagger hidden beneath the stone altar. A coward's strike. "Dominic," she screamed. "The altar." Without hesitation, Dominic shifted, catching Arden's hand just as it closed around the concealed blade. His jaws snapped, his claws tore, and with a final brutal motion, Arden fell. Silence. The council watched in stunned disbelief as Dominic stood victorious, bloodied but unbroken. He raised his voice, echoing through the chamber. "This is what comes of betrayal. This is what comes of striking at the throne. Let every counselor here remember. Truth will stand when lies fall." He turned, extending his bloodied hand toward Leora. "Stand with me," he commanded. She stepped forward, sliding her trembling fingers into his. And the chamber bowed. For the first time, not in mockery or pity but in recognition. The council was broken. Arden lay defeated, his allies cowed into silence. But the war was not yet over. As Dominic and Leora left the chamber, whispers chased them. Some still doubted. Some still feared. But all understood. The blind Omega was no longer invisible. Back in the throne room, the Queen Mother waited. Her gaze fell on Leora first. "You've survived the council's strike." "Barely," Leora murmured. The Queen Mother's voice softened just slightly. "Your grandmother would have been proud." Leora's throat tightened. "You knew her. Tell me, what was she?" The Queen Mother approached, laying a cool hand on her shoulder. "She was truth. And so are you. That pendant she gave you was not only protection. It was recognition. She knew you would be tested. And she knew you would endure." Dominic's hand settled on Leora's back, steady and warm. "And she will not face it alone." The Queen Mother studied her son for a long moment, then inclined her head. "Then perhaps at last the throne will have balance." That night, under the silver gaze of the moon, Dominic brought Leora to the high balcony overlooking the valley. The air was sharp with pine and snow, the world stretched endless before them. He turned to her, his hands cradling her face. "Tonight the council fell. But what truly matters is this: I will not hide what you mean to me. Not from them. Not from anyone." Her breath caught. "Dominic." "I love you, Leora Dane," he said, the words fierce and raw. "Not because of what you are. Not because of your gift. But because you stood in truth when the world tried to break you." Tears slipped down her cheeks, hot against the cold air. "I love you too," she whispered. "Because you saw me when no one else would." Their lips met, sealing a bond deeper than politics, deeper than power. As they stood together beneath the moon, Leora's pendant warmed against her skin. She could almost hear her grandmother's voice one last time. "Trust what you sense beyond sight. And now see with your heart." The council's reign of fear had ended. The Alpha King and the blind Omega stood united, their truth unshakable. And though enemies would surely rise again, one thing was certain. Leora was no longer invisible. She was chosen. She was loved. And she was destined to stand at the side of the Alpha King. Not as shadow, not as pity, but as his equal. And that's where we close the book on Leora and the Alpha King, for now. If this story pulled you into the shadows of the council, if you felt the power of truth and destiny stirring in your chest, then don't let it end here. Smash that like button to show your pack you stand with them, drop a comment with the moment that gave you chills, and subscribe so you never miss the next tale I weave. Until then, trust what you sense beyond sight, and I'll see you in the next story.